Hello, we're at Bob's house. I'm Bob. We're going to look at my collection of drums that I've put together over the years. Some of the stuff's pretty interesting. And I'm able to utilize this empty space for the time being, so it's full of my drums. Two-bedroom family, two-family flat with several bedrooms. Good-sized rooms, old building. We're going to show you the whole house first. You're going to see drums set up in here. Moving into the hall, we sashay into the kitchen, which has become kind of a workshop, storage, and there's a drum set in here too. We'll talk about that. Let's listen to Robert Goulet. That's the kitchen. Check out all the sonar drum heads on the walls. Nothing says Christmas like sonar. We'll be visiting these three drum sets and tell you their stories. Some of these drum sets have names, nicknames. Mostly I gave them names. One drum set was named by somebody else. Moving into what was the dining room. It still is the dining room of this house. There's two sets set up. One set still in covers. Two more drum sets out here. And various cymbals scattered all about the house. Usually down at floor level, they're just leaning up against walls, cases. We'll point out the interesting ones as we go along. So welcome to Bob's Drum Percussion Collection. I call this an all-purpose drum set. Now I'm playing a set of Remo practice pads. This is for the drummer that lives in an apartment. He doesn't want to disturb his neighbors, or he doesn't want to disturb the people in his own house. He can practice quietly in his own room. Some guys put muffling foam on real drums, and that's fine. But this is when you want to conserve space and you don't have enough money for real drums. These are relatively cheap. I think I paid maybe $100, $120 for this. Got plastic cymbals, and I'm using a real good Axis bass drum pedal and a regular Ludwig standard hi-hat pedal. So other than the tick-tick sounds it makes, it really doesn't make any noise. So here's how we do this. That's the Remo practice. Here we are, back in the little bedroom, and this is one of my favorite drum sets of all. This is a late 40s era Slingerland Bebop Combo Deluxe. It features a combo drum, 18 by 20, it's a 20-inch head, 18 inches deep, and it's a double duty drum. It does bass drum down on the bottom with a pedal that hits up, and then floor tom on the top. You can use with cymbals, so you get a a lot of interesting effects. And then you got a beautiful 4.5 by 13 Slingerland Radio King snare drum. This is a very rare drum right here. I'll put the snares on. 11-inch hats on a Gene Krupa hi-hat stand. This is the real deal. All vintage quality. This is a very old Constantinople that I'm using as a left side ride. Got a cool little 8-inch splash. I think that's a 12-inch cheap paper thin. I don't even know what it's called. I think it's a, here it is. It's a Zildjian. So it's the only non-Zildjian. It's a Zildjian, which was a cheap offspring of Zildjian. And then over here is a more of a modern 16-inch crash. Like I said, this is the Bebop Combo Deluxe. It sounds good if you play bebop. 1, 2, 3. This is a little 7 by 10 Chinese tom. I've had it modernized. When it first came to me, I don't know if you noticed in that first photo we showed up here on the wall, it first came to me, it was a Chinese tom with tacked on heads. They were tacked on to the shell, and they really didn't produce much of a tone. And the heads actually are still here on the wall. I'm sorry, George, I'm doing this to you. We got the original heads right here, right there, and this one. There's the original kit. So here's the Chinese tom, and then I had it redone. So we'll pan back to the kit, and I'll show you what it looks like now. Now it's got hoops and lugs on it. So I've kind of modernized it. This was one of the original heads off of it. As you can tell, it doesn't have much life in it. That's about how it sounded. Yabba-dabba-doo. Here we have a duplex marching snare drum. I was in marching bands through late grade school and all through high school, and it's uncomfortable. It's a chore, but it teaches you as a drummer. You learn discipline and power. So there's some good training from being in a marching parade band. And this is a very fine, beautiful Spirit of St. Louis snare. This was made in St. Louis, I'm guessing early 50s. It's hard to tell. The original finish is gone. It was just about tore off the drum when I got it. So I had it rewrapped, and it looks pretty nice. And it's got the sound chamber where actually the outer shell is larger than the diameter of the drum head. So you actually get a wider diameter drum. This was their idea, and they called this the Spirit of St. Louis. I think Peavey might be doing it now. It's the only company, duplex, that ever put wrapping on a metal drum. This is a metal shell, aluminum shell, and they had other size drums, all metal, and they would wrap them. The only drum company I ever heard of that would wrap metal. Okay, so I'll start march drumming here. Now, normally when you march, there's an attachment here that clamps to your leg, so the drum will move with you, but I'm not going far. Here we go. Hut, 2, 3, 4. Hello, here we are back at Bob's Drum Museum collection. And if you find something in here that you love, I understand, I love it all. I have to part with some of it. Some of it I'm keeping, I hope. Here's something I'd love to part with. I love these drums, but I wouldn't mind losing them. They're junior congas made by LP, and they're oddballs because they really aren't a conga. They're not a bongo, they're somewhere in between. I don't know if they sold a lot of these. I think they're used in studios. I think I saw a pair on a Sheryl Crow photograph on her early recordings at the studio they worked out of. I saw these with a wood shell. These are fiberglass. And we got an 8-inch head and a 9-inch head. It comes with a stand. I think I paid about $375 for this little thing here. And I hardly ever use them. So here's how they sound. Now here's how they sound without the snare drum playing. And those are the LP Juniors. Smell the sugar cane. Okay, we're still in the kitchen. You heard the LP Junior congas. Here's a vintage Leedy snare drum, 6.5 by 14 inch. This was their Broadway standard, and this was considered the drum for many years. Leedy was the main manufacturer and seller of drums in America until Slingerland took over, and that happened when Gene Krupa started to become a star, and then he endorsed this little-known company called Slingerland, who were just barely surviving, and they went on and became a giant. They kind of overshadowed Leedy, so Leedy is a great collectible item. These drums are made so well. And this one has the extended snares. It's got the original Leedy snare drum stand on there, which is some sort of aluminum lightweight metal. And it's got a great sound, and I love it. It's part of a kit I'm hoping to acquire. The kit belongs to somebody else. Nice, huh? And there we go. Hello again, Bob's Drum Museum and Collection. And here we are in the bargain bedroom with the Pink Panther paint job. And this is probably the cheapest set I got, the most inexpensive. I bought this drum set just to acquire a pair of hi-hat cymbals that the guy would not sell separate, so I kind of had to buy them. But I worked on them, tuned them up, put the right heads on them, used heads that I had, and right now I got them matched up with some nice cymbals over here, an 18-inch K Custom Ride, an 18-inch Zildjian Crash, some 14-inch Zildjian Quick Beat cymbals, hi-hats. We got a 8x12 tom, 9x13 tom on a 14x20 bass drum, 16x16 floor drum, and a matching 5.5x14 snare. And these are Ravel, made in Japan. And I joke and say they were played by Paul Ravel and the Raiders. If somebody believes that, maybe they'll pay a few extra bucks. And here's how they sound. All right, now we have in the bargain pink bedroom, this is my Polaris kit. These are up a level from the Revels. We're moving up in quality. They're a cool 60s Japanese kit, and I say they're proud to be Polaris because the badges are intact. I remember these drums as a kid, people that had Polaris drums. With one easy tug, this badge, this flimsy piece of metal comes right off, this thin piece of aluminum, whatever it's made out of. These are all intact. No one removed them, so that's rare, I think. It's a dingy red sparkle. I had to put new hoops on this drum kit. The old hoops were destroyed beyond repair. So I jazzed it up with some silver metal flake inlays. And matching 5x14 snare, 20-inch kick, 16-inch floor, using a cheap Yamaha pedal and an old Ludwig standard hi-hat. Got some crummy hi-hat cymbals. These are Stenoples. I think they may have actually come with these drums when they were offered. I don't know. They were like a lower line of pasties. Over here on the ride, they got a 20-inch K dark dry ride. This thing is really dark and stick sounding. So I don't have a nickname for these drums. They're just my Polaris Surfer kit. And here's how they sound. And here's the final of the 3 kits here in Pete's Pink Bargain Bedroom here, here in Bob's Emporium and Drum Museum. These are my Ludwig Standards. They were considered an entry-level kit back in the late 60s, early 70s. They only made them for a few years, I think from 68 to 71. So this is anywhere in there. And it's a cool kit. It's got a ruby strata finish. It's a small size 14x14 floor tom, 20-inch kick, 8x12, 5x14 snare. Got some pasty sound edge hi-hats on this side. A nice Zildjian mini cup ride, 20-inch. And I'm using some Ludwig pedals here, some old Speed King hi-hat and bass drum pedal. And this drum set was nicknamed Twinkie when I played a gig at a wedding. The girl singer walked in and made a remark, what's with the Twinkie drum set? Later she liked the sound of them, but I thought the name was great. So since then, these are Twinkie. So here's how Twinkie sounds. Twinkie. And here we have what I call Mighty Mouse. These drums are small and compact. They're actually Ludwig tom-toms that I turned into bass drums, these front two. This was a 16x18 tom that makes a nice little kick, got it elevated up. And on the left I actually have a 10x14 tom converted to a little side accent drum for my left foot. It really will never sound like a bass drum, but it kind of throws in a little extra kick here and there. And I'm going with a 9x10 tom and a 11x12 side tom. And then the snare drum is Mapex. This thing is a 3x12 inch piccolo, limited edition Mapex. And it's a fun little drum to play on. So let me put this back on. And I got to say the cymbals, these cymbals are all high dollar UFIPs made in Italy. 12-inch hats, 10-inch splash, a 17 and a 15-inch crash, a 19-inch vintage ride UFIP experience, and a 16-inch trash cymbal. We got DW 5000 pedals. We got a Ludwig hi-hat stand, an old 60s model. We got 2 cowbells, and this is how Mighty Mouse sounds. That there's a 1920s era leady pedal. Still feels pretty good. I could probably play this, except I couldn't trust it to stay in one piece because these little pegs would pop out and the pedal would become detached. So it's amazing these guys actually played gigs on these things. And this little knocker here on the side that you can flip up and down, that's for when they had a cymbal attached to the bass drum on the hoop. So this pedal would hit the drum head and the cymbal at the same time, go boom crash at the same time. That's the sound they wanted. So the parade sound, everything was a parade sound. But this is a really very fluid feeling pedal still after all these decades. Good job. It's so little. I think it's very compact. If I wanted to fold it up, it'll folds up into almost nothing. Just comes off.
And what is that?
It's a leady. Actually, it's the leady pedal. They bought out the Frazier. These used to be called the Frazier pedal.
Show me the logo.
It says leady down here, the round trademark, and then up here it says made by Leedy Manufacturing Company, Indianapolis, Indiana. Well, Leedy was in Elkhart, Indiana, and when they bought out Frazier pedals, these were the Frazier pedals. That's what all the drummers are using. Those are the best pedals in the 20s. And when Leedy bought Frazier out, they bought the site and everything, so they just stuck their name on the Frazier pedals that were still being made in Indianapolis. And here's your pedal. It's nice and compact. This is what I call Frankenstein because it's all kinds of different parts put together. No two drums match. We have the very fine Slingerland Radio King bass drum, 14 by 22, early 50s era, and it just sounds real good. Got an old cheap 9 by 13 Polaris tom-tom. And on the side, I'm using an 80s era, early 80s Ludwig 12 by 15 tom. And then for the snare, I got a 5 by 14 red satin flame Apollo. Got some old vintage coconuts on the side. And all nice Zildjian cymbals. I got a piggyback over here with an 8-inch and a 16. I got a 12-inch splash. I'm using a 17-inch as a crash ride, and over here I got some vintage K Zildjian, made in Istanbul hi-hat cymbals. These are the real deal. Jazz guys would love these. So here's how this set sounds. here we go with a cool little 60s Ludwig kit. They call this a club date. It's a phone. Let's see who's calling. Okay, here we go with a cool little Ludwig kit. This is what they called the club date. This is from the early mid-60s. And the club date was actually a cheaper drum set. It would save you a few bucks because it didn't use double heart lugs. It only used one center lug on the toms and the bass drum. It came with a floor tom originally. That's long gone. I never saw the floor tom. It was never in my possession. And this is also a Duco finish, only it's kind of reverse. Normally they put the silver as the stripe and then the solid color, the darker color as the rest of the drum. This is kind of like a flip on that. That's why this drum set is also nicknamed. You saw Big Blue. This is, you can call this Bandit or Rocky Raccoon with the little raccoon bandit face. And it sounds like this. This is the star of the show, Big Blue. It all started with this bass drum I got in the basement of a local music store years ago. Got it real cheap. It needed work. I fixed it up, repaired the hoops, and then slowly over the next 4 or 5 years, I added one drum at a time and had it rewrapped to match as close as I could to match the blue sparkle finish. So we got a 14 by 26 bass drum. We got a 9 by 13 tom. We have twin 16 by 16 floor toms, and we have a 5 by 14 vintage Slingerland Artist Series snare drum. These drums are all late 60s, early 70s, thereabouts. They're not exactly aged perfectly, but they're close enough. And I got a bunch of Zildjian cymbals here, a 22-inch flat ride that sounds real nice, a 20-inch crash, a 20-inch pang. It's kind of a China type that Zildjian made. The edges flatten out with some Camco sizzlers on them. I got a 14-inch crash, 20-inch ride over here, and some 14-inch hats. And this is kind of like a big band kit. So let's just imagine we're back in the big band days. Big Blue.